so much. So I take it we are the last group before lunch. We won't take up too much of your time. I'm very esteemed and proud to be here today to welcome my panel, who is made up of industry experts, academia and government. So I'd like to introduce the first panel member. It's Rian Power. He's from the TUT, Faculty of Science, and currently a curriculum specialist. He's have a wealth of knowledge in that field. He's been in training and development for over 30 years. Rian, if you could come forward. Next, I have Douglas Fleece. He's a venture capital and business partner in over 30 years of venture capital funding, and he really looks for innovative solutions in addressing venture capital businesses going forward. Thank you. We then have Kenny Masobe. He's the CEO of Igoli Bio, an incubator within the Department of Science and Technology. Kenny has also been in the industry for over 15 years, and he has managed to raise in excess of 300 million over 3 years in the incubator. Thank you, Kenny. And then I'd like to introduce my colleague, Mark Johnson. He's from the Technology Innovation Agency. He's a commercialization and technology transfer specialist. He has over 15 years experience, and he manages a portfolio within TIA in technology development. Thank you, Mark. I think it's a bit, the light is in your faces. Okay, so I'm from the Technology Innovation Agency, and like I said, we are a government funding agency under the Department of Science and Technology, and we have partnered with the Department of Environmental Affairs to recognize a key national imperative by the department focusing on electronic waste. So a lot of you may be wondering, what is electronic waste? So electronic waste is anything with a motherboard. So anything from a computer to a laptop to a cell phone to your washing machine to anything with any electronic component. So just to set the scene for you, electronic waste is one of the fastest growing and most complex waste streams in developing countries like South Africa. So due to the increased number of electronic waste, a lot comes with health conditions and environmental risks in the sector. Electronic waste has not been exploited correctly and beneficiation has not occurred. In South Africa, we've realized that there is a monopoly of one or two big industry players that monopolize the industry and have taken up beneficiation opportunities. Through that, there is a number of informal waste pickers and waste collectors and dismantlers that do not see the true wealth of this product being beneficiated at the end. So TIA has really partnered with the Department of Environmental Affairs to realize this opportunity and how do we create small business development through the informal sector. I'm going to hand over to Mark Johnson, who's going to take you through a little bit about what TIA plans to do in its role to stimulate the environment. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Johnson. Thank you, Sanisha. Yes, the Technology Innovation Agency is a funding agency from government. We are a child of the Department of Science and Technology, and our purpose is to provide both financial and non-financial support for technology development. We fund technology innovation from proof of concept to pre-commercialization, and we also have a lot of other initiatives that aim to develop skills around that technology development in the hope that we pass it on to established incubators and venture capitalists for further commercialization. So within the context of the e-waste sector, we see this as an invaluable opportunity to provide both technology support and non-financial skills and enterprise development support like Sanisha shared. In the value chain, there's quite a bit of opportunity from the picker to the dismantler, to the separator, to the beneficiator, recycler, and finally, full value addition in terms of high value commodities.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for sharing the value chain. So we've realized that in terms of skills development opportunities, there were a number of gaps identified within this value chain. And in terms of qualification development, there wasn't any qualifications really developed or skills programs focusing on the lower end and upstream. I'm going to just introduce Rian to take us through what has been the challenges thus far and what are the opportunities within skills transfer and knowledge transfer in this sector.
Thank you, Shanisha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Rian Boyle speaking. I think what we should take note of, we are faced, due to waste management, with a total new industry that looms out there. And if we talk new industry, we talk new occupations. And if we talk new occupations, it is clear that firstly, that we are faced with opportunities in education and training within all the frameworks of the National Qualification Framework. That's at first very important to take note of. So there is clearly a lot of opportunities in education and training. Further, there's opportunities for us that's involved in education and training to capacitate the non-working and working individuals in the field of waste management to acquire the knowledge, skills, and applied competencies they would need in the field of waste management. And by doing so, then to contribute to the socio-economic development of South Africa. So that is shortly the two key issues that stands out holistically in terms of education and training opportunities stemming from such a new environment and a new field of study.
Okay, thank you, Rian. If you look at e-waste, some of the statistics around e-waste, there's about 800,000 tons per annum of e-waste, and government is the biggest producer of this e-waste. There's about 2.4 billion in GDP that's sitting within the e-waste sector, and there's about 300,000 rands per annum of storage fees sitting in e-waste, where government stores electronic waste. If we look at these opportunities, we're looking at creating an access of across various waste streams in South Africa. As per the Department of Environmental Affairs, they're looking at creating about 127,000 jobs across 4 waste streams. Within the e-waste sector specifically, you're looking at creating 25,000 jobs. And obviously that will have a multiplier effect on the number of people within those communities. So you're looking at altogether, just within e-waste, creating 100,000 sustainable jobs. If you look at how do you take this informal sector and look at a business model that will actually be put in place to realize the potential of this. Kenny, I'd like you to maybe address this for me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From the what you call incubation perspective, we actually conjugate between science and business. What we look for is actually a blend of two things. What are your skills that you need to apply into your business, and what are the business needs to skill you to be able to go into the market? We look at how we help you to become actually business ready, and what type of market you want to go to, and align with that. Tomorrow, should you actually want to engage in a proper business, all the pillars of business have been covered in terms of the needs. You are able to employ, you are able to understand how you value your business, and how you actually contract with the market. And that's where you basically come in and support you and become a link between what you need in terms of what TIA has done in terms of proof of concept, and being able to convert that concept into a marketable business. What we really aim to do is to ensure that when you go to the market, you don't fail. We are able to help you to actually cushion you through the whole process of being business ready.
Okay, thank you. Kenny. I think in order to realize this potential, we found as the Technology Innovation Agency, within other countries around the world, there's a strong venture capital fund sitting within the US, for example. So if you have technologies that need to be developed, you have a strong VC fund that sits within these countries that allows for, when there's new technologies coming, how do they support those new technologies through venture capital funding? So as much as government and academia tries to play its role, it's who's going to hold our hand in terms of that partner coming on board for sustainability of such businesses, and how does that inflow then come back into social development for the basically for the unemployed youth. So I'd like to hand over to Doug, who has got a wealth of knowledge and experience in venture capital funding, to assist us to take the process forward.
Thank you, Tanisha. Venture capital, I think, is really the commercial conscience of this process. Because without a financial reality and a success at the end of the day, none of this is going to have been benefiting any of the participants. And I think that's really where we come in on a venture capital basis, is that we link this process with the commercial reality of the market that's going to take up this opportunity. So from a venture capital point of view, we play a very close role right from inception, and we take an active interest in how each element plays out with a view to being able to present this to the external, the final market, in which we will then recover the monies, hopefully with realistic profits and returns, and renew the original fund with a view to reinvesting that back into this process for future technologies. So venture capital is really the end goal of this process, which is linked from the beginning to the end, and we hope to then be able to place these technologies, successful technologies, with the right partners and reimburse the original funds. I think that's as simple as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I think with that being said, government is normally seen not to be playing a role. The Department of Environmental Affairs, through its regulations, are trying to as well. They've released some regulations around controlling exporting of e-waste into other parts of the country for beneficiation. So there we can see government's plight to try and assist the process rather than hinder it. I'd like to ask, are there any questions from the panel members to one another, or even if there's any questions in the audience?
Hello. Thank you so much for the input that you have given us. My question lies on the 800 million tons of waste by the government. But now with there's the fourth, the change of technology that is coming on, and there's a lot of waste that's gonna be coming. How will you solve it? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think for us, we see that as an opportunity, because what that will do is provide even a greater stock of raw material for beneficiation. What is key is to put in place the correct technology that will allow us to actively and optimally beneficiate the raw stock material. And key to that is the Technology Innovation Agency. As an agency, we are looking at strategic technologies that will give maximum value when we implement it with respect to this beneficiation process. So for me, all that says is that we are looking at a model where we can put the right technologies in a type of franchise model, which allows for maximum beneficiation using an increased feedstock, which you indicate will emanate from the fourth industrial revolution.
Hi, just to add on the question is that this is an opportunity for any entrepreneur to actually take over. There is issues of compliance that you need to consider, handling the waste. So you need to be trained and also understand what are the requirements. There's opportunities of able to know actually how to actually sort the value out of the e-waste, what is precious, what is not, and who is your market, and how to actually dictate the right price. That's part of a commercialization preparedness that will actually look at actually skilling you on, and that could work from actually in terms of skills development, which would be part of the training that might be given as an opportunity. How it's actually aligned into MQF, I wouldn't know. I'm not a fundi.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, could you please, it's a question directed to either Kelly or Douglas, just to give us a sense of the success you've achieved with the small businesses, the startups, and how far they've gone.
It varies, it depends on the business and the technology involved. We've got low tech and we've got high tech. Low techs could take predictable time. High tech can take close to 7 years or more, depending on the appetite of the market, the legislative compliance, e.g. if it's a health technology, you need to go through a lot of stringent compliance through the Medical Control Council. You need to do your clinical trials, and that would take about almost 2.5 years of your time before you could even realize a cent. You need to go through a proof of concept, ensure that your technology is aligned and safe for use. Whether is it an in vivo or in vitro, there's a lot of issue of compliance. Where you trade your business is also an issue of, is your premises compliant in terms of the regulatory requirements? Does the legislative allow you that? There's tax issues. So there is a lot of things that you have to go through as an entrepreneur. And the success story depends on how ready is your business, how compliant are you, and whether there is a risk appetite from the VCs, as an example, and they see an opportunity. But that could be a lifetime business that is generational. There is also a low-tech kind of a business, like your e-waste. You go in, you sort, you break what you need to break. It can take you up to 6 months, depending on your readiness and the level of experience and knowledge you have. So each business go through what we call a gap analysis, and we're able to know exactly what can be done. Remember, it's not about the business, also the individual needs to be prepared to be able to actually handle that business. I hope I've answered you.
Doug, I think you asked yourself.
If I can just follow on from Kenny. The venture capital side of things is actually dependent on the manner in which you apply the venture capital principles. So we're proud to say that our success rate with companies that we back has been 100%. But I think that goes to the manner in which we do our due diligence and the structure of the deals that we take on. So Kenny deals much more readily with your startups, whereas a venture capital fund is not traditionally dealing with blue sky or greenfield type investments. So the link between TIA is that they will fund the technology, and they will also have a mentoring program in which they will take care of the various businesses that they will participate in from a technology and a mentoring phase. By the time it gets to the VC side, depending on the manner in which we conduct ourselves, we should have a very, very high rate of success. If that answers it.
Thank you, Sanisha, and the panel from TIA. From where I'm sitting, I would say there's a gap between the skills development perspective of the technology that must be developed here locally versus the importation of products coming from abroad. Since you are talking about how do we deal with the waste of the electronics that has been, used and no longer being used, since we are rapidly moving into the fourth industrialization, sector of the industry. So I want to know is, what is TIA, doing in terms of bridging that gap, training people here locally to come up with environmental friendly, technology, so that we don't import more stuff to discard it later and then send it abroad. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, I think you can handle that, right?
Thank you for the question. I think we need to look at it from both perspectives. Technology development does take time, so we want to hit the ground running. So we will use a module, or let's say a two-dimensional approach. The first approach is to look at technologies that are already available and fully functional, but ensure that the owners or the South Africans that participate or interact with that technology are capacitated. So that is the one leg that we will really play a strong role in with our partners. The second part is the part where we look at the technology development, which is a much more long-term process. In that regard, we will look at the impact of that technology to the complete beneficiation and also provide technology development and skills development support. Technology development support will come predominantly from TIA, and the skills development support pertaining to that technology will come from TIA and its partners. So in short, we are looking to capacitate individuals to enable them to use the technology adequately and effectively. One example is that we have a partner company in India that has done very well in e-waste beneficiation, that has an established technology beneficiation value chain. So our aim is to partner with them, bring their mentors across to South Africa and capacitate local people or young people to, utilize their technology and achieve a similar benefit. I hope that answers your question.
I think just to add to that, Mark, so we have 6 retrofitted containers, e-waste containers, that currently looks at dismantling, that will be placed at the universities of technology. And once they run their first initial training program on dismantling, TIA together with one of our platforms, so TIA's role, we have technology platforms that assist young black people that come up with new innovations that could have access to the platform and expertise and knowledge transfer at the platform. So at that platform, we will be looking at opportunities with the incubation process that Kelly speaks about on what are the new local technologies that could be manufactured in South Africa. But as Mark said, with that whole process, we will look at how do we bring in inbound technology and what additions or enhancements could be made to that technology. So in order to upscale and to commercialize that tag, what would that opportunity be? Because once the 6 containers are set up within the next few months, TIA's role will primarily be to look at what is the commercial opportunity around those containers, looking at the opportunity about setting them up as enterprises within the communities.
I think taking the lead of the question as to whether we're going to import the technology or create it here, I think there's an old adage that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that's the starting point here, is that we need to be commercially orientated to bring in leading best of brand or leading technology, best of breed. So we're not going to waste funds by trying to recreate something that already exists. So I think having had this conversation with the team from a venture capital point of view, we're looking at how quickly we can satisfy the needs that we've identified, which are to look after the country's resources in terms of waste management, then to empower the people to make a living and to create jobs and to upskill our population. So I think from a commercial point of view, we've spoken about a concept, you heard it earlier on from Mark, about franchise. If you consider a franchising opportunity, why would someone go and buy a franchise? It's because the technology is already developed. Let's assume we're talking about a Nando's. They've already worked out how to source the chicken, to procure it. They then have worked out all their recipes for the various products. You can go along today and you can be a Nando's franchise holder tomorrow morning and make money. And I think that's the way we're looking at this model, is that once we've got the technology, we will create micro business units, which will then be run by people that have been trained in the various skills development areas, and they will then be able to generate a living by beneficiating these e-waste products to a process where they can be sold to whichever market will want to take them. So I think that's really the process that we see the quickest and easiest to market, the most efficient for the people, and the way that we're going to solve the problem identified in looking after the resources of the country. So I think does that answer it?
Thank you, Doug. Are there any last comments from the panel members?
Maybe just to add, we need to look at the market opportunity as a business opportunity. And remember, the more knowledge you have, the more opportunities you see. I mean, skills and development is just actually a key to look at other possibilities. And the nice thing about EWS is that you don't have to have a certain degree or qualification to actually start running with it. There's low value, which we call bringing in, harvesting the e-waste from the dustbins. And there are those that are sorting, and there are those that are actually benefiting out of them. So there is a point of entry for anybody with any level of skill. But through those skills gap, you need to understand the handling, the safety of it, which comes as another training opportunity for trainers to come in and actually engage at those levels. And those are part of the systems that go through the franchise plan, that for us to be able to work with you, you need to have been able to do A, B, C, D, and E. And in terms of government and its legislative framework, they'll put rules and regulations of who can do what at what level. And those are the things that you also have to consider while you go through these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My question is around the youth and the communities. Are there opportunities for youth that are living in the communities to become waste managers? And what are you doing about it in making sure that youth get exposed to this environment? Thank you.
Perhaps if I can answer that. Thank you for that question. I think going back to my concept of the franchise, once we create an operating business in each and every area, the youth will be encouraged to participate, because they will be the ones that will be encouraged to apply for the training, and the training will then empower them to become active participants in this e-waste process. So I think it's going to be a very active program that's going to encourage a lot of participation from all walks of life, and youth will be encouraged to do that because they will develop skills which can be used for the rest of their time. So I think it is something that we have considered as the skills training portion of it. It will create an enormous amount of opportunity. We talk about, I think it was 28,000 employment opportunities would be the starting point. So we're very excited by the fact that there'll be a lot of opportunity for employment, and the low skill set that's required would suit the youth initially, and then they will obviously be trained by the skills development and yourselves as trainers.
If I can add on to that, if we look what the ideal is of Operation Pakiza, is that they say that by the year 2023, we need to create a number of 127,000 jobs in the waste management sector holistically, of which 30% should be earmarked for women and 70% for the youth. So I think that answers that question, and great concern about that.
Thank you. I think just to add to that, so I head up the Innovation Skills Development Unit at TIA. And within that, we're currently working with the community colleges in the rural communities. And we've taken 10,000 young people through our program called Critical Thinking Skills. And the idea is once they've gone through this journey with us, we basically preparing them to become future business owners. So we're taking them through the thinking process and on an entrepreneurial journey through new venture creation, which we've already done, I think, about 300 young people through new venture creation, which basically deals with setting up a business. And we're looking at that opportunity, how do we then work with them to take them forward into these kind of opportunities to grow that whole e-waste sector. Okay. Is there anything else?
Okay, dumelang bagolo le kae? Ere teng. Ke nna Mondo. My name is Mondo. My surname is Mashilo. I work for Lesedzi la Batho. It's a non-profit organization in Mabopane, Block B, the northwest side of Pretoria. All right, I come from the non-profit organization sector, and I'm very intrigued because part of my responsibility where I work is to incubate young entrepreneurs. So when I heard of Mr. Kenny there incubating or in the incubation department, I was very intrigued. And then I also had somebody talking of entrepreneurship on the panel there. So what I want to know right now is there a program in your organization that accommodates non-profit organization? And was the procedure for us to be part of you? Because most of the time when people see non-profit organization people or representative, they're thinking that we're asking money. But the actual reason we are here today is to build relationships and nothing else. Because we believe that when we borrow ideas, when we exchange wisdom, we'll definitely remain sustainable, and we're not going to be beggars, but we'll be able to do things for ourselves and for our community, which is our mandate as Lesedi Labato. Thank you so much.
So TIA would partner with non-profit organizations. We have a number of collaboration agreements, just like the community college one, where we're looking at how do we work with organizations that have a number of youth associated to them. So you can speak to me after this, and then I'll take your details. Okay, thank you. Is there anything you want to add, Kenny?
Mondo, thank you for your initiative. I'll also help you support you so that you could also share the notes.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the panel members. Okay.